Thank you very much. And this is very much about you. So do ask questions along the way, and to incentivize you to ask questions, because I know you're an Asian audience, and our Asian audiences don't normally ask a lot of questions, I'm going to give out books. But you have to work hard for the book. You actually have to ask a question. And the question can't be, can I have a book, please, Chris? It's got to be a real question. So think about a real question, and if you get a real question, we can get a book, and then you can learn even more about social selling. But fundamentally, we're going to talk about LinkedIn and top 10 tips about LinkedIn and about how you can use social selling in your jobs to drive the My Sales for MBS. But why listen to me? Plenty of other people out there pretend to be doing LinkedIn marketing, but they haven't got 900 LinkedIn recommendations. So we're very proud of the fact we've got LinkedIn recommendations, so it's not just us saying we're doing a great job, it's actually 900 other people publicly saying the same thing. We've also won lots of awards from LinkedIn themselves, so it's all about power profiles based on views. And if you're Marina Bay Sands, then you get lots of views. But if you're a little company like ours, it's much harder. You have to work harder. So it proves that what we do actually does work on a continuous basis. We also win lots of awards. We've just won B2B Marketing Agency of the Year, for example. And we have 3 books. We have Mastery, we have Personal Branding Mastery, and the book you can win if you ask a fantastic question today, Social Selling Mastery. No pressure. We also have the 5 companies. So we employ about 35 people now in Singapore who basically work for SMEs and leaders across the world. A company called Black Marketing. We have our newest brand, which is actually Rockstar Keynote Speaker. We're actually promoting female keynote speakers across the world because there's too many panels, too many keynotes with only male speakers. So we've now got over 100 female speakers who we're promoting across the world, and we're promoting them and pointing out to people who hold events in places like Marina Bay Sands, for example, they need to have more females on their panels and their keynotes. So there's a big push for that in 2019. We also have obviously Social Selling 2019, which is actually here on July the 9th. So I know you're all coming to that, so there's no excuse. July the 9th is the date, and we'll be doing a whole series of workshops and keynotes, 18 of them. Here on July the 9th, which will be absolutely fantastic. We've got some amazing speakers lined up, some really inspirational speakers for Social Selling 19. We had Social Selling 2018 in Microsoft across the road. It's phenomenal success. We have a PR arm, we have a travel arm, and we even have a Masterclass arm, which this is part of it. But without further ado, why use social media to sell? Fundamentally, when someone meets you, what's the first thing they do? They Google you. And the first thing that comes up is this. So if I Google Sarah, for example, sorry, so I knew you were going to be here, then obviously her LinkedIn profile comes up. And you'll notice I have not put LinkedIn into Google. I've actually just put Sarah's name itself. But because the algorithm of LinkedIn itself, and because of Google's algorithm, it treats LinkedIn profiles more seriously than Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or YouTube or however many other social media platforms that Sarah has. So LinkedIn promotes that, and Google promotes that because it sees how much work Sarah puts into her profile. And then I click on this, and the first impression I get of Sarah and Sarah's personal brand is obviously this. So I get a fantastic view of Sarah. She's now blushing in the corner. But it is very, very positive in terms of, wow, that's an amazing picture. It's probably one of the best pictures I've seen at MBS, for example. But you also get her keywords. That's her personal branding. And that's how social media works. As a first impression, it's a very, very positive first impression. And we'll be looking at all your profiles later on, don't worry. Some of your profiles really need a lot of work. Also what you need to do is get out your phones and make sure you have the LinkedIn app, because we're going to show you something halfway through the presentation which you'll love and you'll take to all your events and all your conferences. Absolutely amazing, but you need to have the LinkedIn app, so it only works in the app, not the Surface, not the Pro, not the website. Have that, and about halfway through I'll show you a nice little trick which you can use for events going forwards. So if you Google Marina Bay Sands, obviously the LinkedIn comes up here, and you should obviously all be following the Marina Bay Sands LinkedIn page as well. So please do make sure you're one of the 60,000 people, or sorry, 90,000 people who are doing that, which is absolutely fantastic. So Sarah's obviously doing an amazing job by driving followers up for the MBS LinkedIn page. But why LinkedIn? Well, I came to Singapore 10 years ago, about 6 months before you actually created and put live Marina Bay Sands. And I didn't know a single person, so I used my LinkedIn connections in London and said, who do you know in Singapore? And then I reached out to those people, and because it's Singapore, they all said yes, they'd meet me. And so it's very open-minded. And I got my first, my second, my third job by using LinkedIn. And those jobs were marketing jobs, sales jobs across the world, particularly around Asia Pacific. I didn't know anybody in Asia Pacific. So again, I started using LinkedIn. This is way before social selling became in vogue. So then I thought, well, if you can use the data to find people for recruitment, you can use it for social selling. And it's so true. There's now 600 million professionals on LinkedIn. And in Asia itself, It's the fastest growing region in the world. As you can see from here, you've got India and you've got China, the second and third largest countries in the world, obviously behind the States, and the UK down there. But Asia is where the action is. Asia is now going to double in size in the next 3 or 4 years. You know, LinkedIn opening offices all over Asia Pacific. This is where the growth is, not least because the internet speeds are picking up, middle classes are picking up, everything is getting faster here and income is growing, whereas in the West, it's very much saturated. Those figures are not going to grow very much higher. But in Asia, it will do. So you're in the right place at the right time on the right platform. But LinkedIn is very much a gamification platform. So what I mean by that is the more you do on LinkedIn, the more you get out of it. But the less you do, the more you get punished. So it becomes very addictive. You find yourself doing things on LinkedIn when you really shouldn't be, like on a date or something, or Christmas Day, or other places where you shouldn't be doing it. But it becomes addictive because the more you do it, the more your rankings go up, the more your ratings go up. But then if you stop doing it, it can go down as well. So it becomes very addictive, but it's also very effective. Just by doing things, by accessing things, if you put some of these tips I'm going to show you today into action, your rankings will go up, your search appearances go up, your views will actually go up as well. And I like this quote from James Blunt, not obviously because I like James Blunt, because nobody would publicly admit to liking James Blunt, but I'm self-deprecating because I'm British. If I was American, I would tell you how great I was, because Americans are fantastic at promoting themselves. And the problem is British people like me, and Asians, for example, and Australians and Kiwis, for example, do not like promoting themselves. It's all a collective thing. But the problem with doing that is that we'll be some American who comes along and then gets that business or gets that job or gets that investment. So you have to promote yourself to make it equal on LinkedIn. And I'm not talking about lying, I'm just talking about promoting what you're actually doing. So we're going to show you today how you can actually do that in the confines of promoting things for you, personally branding, to help you sell Marina Bay Sands even harder. So we believe there's 4 different ways to actually do this on LinkedIn. One is personal branding. It is all about you. The second one is content marketing. The third one is then marketing that through Marina Bay Sands. And then the fourth one is social selling. But you can't do social selling unless you've done the first 3 points. And that's fundamental. So we're going to go through those 4 points first. So the first one, your visual impression. It's so important you have a very positive visual impression. People take so much in visually to form an impression of someone's personal brand. So if I show you this, you get a personal brand. You get a view of a personal brand. The Joker has a personal brand. You know what he stands for. Disruption and chaos and that makeup and that dress sense and that fantastic hairdo. But it's a personal brand. It's an impression. So if I show you someone like Steve Dawson, for example, who's on Fox Sports, he also has a coaching business. So he wants you to know he's a coaching business. He's gone bang with the coaching business. If I show you Karen Jacobson, for example, her mohawk, if you like, is the GPS girl. She's the voice of the GPS. So next time you hear a GPS and it goes recalculating, 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 it's Karen. Karen does that for a living. Amazing. But she also uses that as a personal brand to be a content performer and a keynote speaker. So she's using something about her, i.e. her little mohawk, and basically being a GPS, because the GPS money itself doesn't pay going forwards, whereas actually leveraging that personal brand does. So if I show you something like Frederick, for example, he's a global conference speaker, so he wants you to know that with the backstory, the picture, the headline. 60 countries in 6 continents. That's his branding. Even Sophia the robot, who I met in Hong Kong, is on LinkedIn. And she's a real person. But you can engage with Sophia and she'll have some kind of real AI conversation with you in return. So don't do things like this. Because as much as I might aspire one day to being George Clooney, I'm not. So I can't use his profile picture. And this is what I call your classic Facebook photograph. This is, we've had a few drinks downstairs at Bread Street Kitchen or DB Modern, for example, and someone says, why don't you dress as a panda? You've had a few drinks, you'll probably agree to anything, so you dress as a panda. Somebody else says, why don't you put it on LinkedIn? You've had a few drinks, it's 3 a.m. by this stage, and that goes up, and then you go, what did I do? Don't do this. Facebook is not LinkedIn. Which one's Melita? Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. You can't create a relationship with someone if you don't know who you're talking to. And why do people use animals? I never understand this. Why do people use animals in their LinkedIn? Especially if it's something like the Guinness symbol. Unless you're selling Guinness, why would you use the Guinness symbol in your LinkedIn? Don't do that. And don't do this. He couldn't decide which photograph to use, so he used all the photographs in one picture. That doesn't work either. And Elizabeth here went for the full Tinder look. Yes, you can't do this. And Elizabeth decided to put her Tinder picture up there, but unfortunately she works for a little company called the Hyatt Hotel Group. And more to the point, she's in charge of human resources. Hashtag me too. And definitely don't do this, especially if you live in China. This would not go down very well. Apparently, Jason hasn't been seen for a few months. So your personal brand statement is also very important because it's about how you describe yourself. It's about how you get picked up on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is a search engine. So if you don't put keywords in there, you can't get found. So you got Nike has Just Do It. That's their brand strapline. You have Apple, which has Think Different. That's their brand strapline. Mine is The Only CEO with a Mohawk, or the world's most recommended LinkedIn marketing entrepreneur. So we have those two little straplines, for example. So every single person has a strapline, and why this is important is because your strapline follows you everywhere on LinkedIn. Every single place you go, whether you like it or not on LinkedIn, your headline follows you. So whether you share something on LinkedIn, for example, if you actually then comment on something on LinkedIn, if you get tagged by somebody else, it comes up on LinkedIn. If you then get searched, for example, you see the difference between mine and somebody else also called Chris Reed. It comes up. It's giving information to people so they can make a choice about whether to engage with you or not. So it's classic social selling. It also appears in other people's profiles. You see mine, you see Frederick's, and you see some bloke called Bill Gates. Got one laugh, that did. And then Mike Nackey here, for example, used it to challenge you. So he runs an SEO company. So he's gone, the coolest guy in Nashville. Google it to see for yourself. So we did. And he is. He's the coolest guy. He came second. Imagine he was the second coolest guy in Nashville. That wouldn't work so well. But he's using it to make you do something. Now your background picture is also phenomenally important. Look at Andrew here in Shanghai, the Ritz-Carlton. That amazing view. Similar to the restaurants you have, the bars you have up here, for example. So use that view to say, look, if you come here, you can have an amazing view of the Pudong and Shanghai, for example. Or Dahlia here, who's promoting her business. So you go to her profile, and you go, bang, you know what she's doing. She's a young entrepreneur here in Singapore. Or Ryan here, who's on the BBC, Discovery Channel, Amazon Prime. He climbs mountains and lets you know he's at the top of a mountain. So that's using the whole of the picture very effectively to actually do that. Bang, the power of one picture. Or you go with someone like Jane, who's got Jane Anderson, Humility is the New Power, with her being a keynote and her book. So the three brand values of her personal branding encapsulated in one short picture. But LinkedIn's not dynamic. So what I mean by that is, on the laptop, the photograph of you is on the left-hand side. The reason why you use a bank in the middle is because if you don't, whatever's in the middle will go on the mobile. Because the mobile, the photograph's in the middle. And the picture at the back does not, unfortunately, change. So you've got to adapt your profile to make sure that you can see it on both the mobile and the laptop, because it's 50-50 in terms of usage. So don't do things like this. Lonely and young girl. And we tried to find her in Singapore because she lives here and she's on that swing in that playground all by herself, but we can't find her. So if you know her, do reach out to her and tell her to change her profile picture. Human being. Albert felt the need here to put human being down, as if you're going to do a search on LinkedIn going, I need to find a human being somewhere. Dave Kay went for the executive demigods at Miracle Health. I'm sorry, Dave, that's not a photograph to sell Miracle Health. Shelley Sharer, wife of Stephen Sharer. Why would you do that? Especially as Stephen did not reciprocate. Stephen has not got husband of Shelley Sharer. And surely he should do. I have written to him saying you should do that. He hasn't replied. Because Dale has spouse of owner at Picosa Mexican restaurant. So he has no brand status by himself. He's just going out with someone who owns a dodgy restaurant in Hong Kong. Lecturer at retired and enjoying time with the family. Does he look like he's enjoying time with the family? No, I think he'd rather be back at work. These are real, yes. Believe me, I don't need to make this shit up. This is real people on LinkedIn. There's a huge content amount here I can just use. Sean here, for example, CEO, Accelerating Digital for Global Corporates and Startups, HSBC. You think that's impressive? He's the HSBC CEO. Nope, he's in charge of the website. You can't claim to be the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar organization if you're in charge of the website. These are very different things. Like this. She pretends she's a managing director, where really she's the personal assistant to the managing director. These are two very different experiences. And don't do this. If you're going to be saying you won an award, make it up to date. People of the year 2010 is not up to date. And second of all, where's the people? And if you're going to promote yourself as a keynote speaker, it's tend to be good to have people in the auditorium at the time. People leaving and having nobody there just says nobody came to your keynote talking. And why would you do this? I don't know who does this. Belle here said she used to work for a good company. She used to work for Uber. She used to work for Netflix. She used to work for Spotify. But you notice she does not put her current company there. She doesn't like her current company. She just likes to remind you who she used to work for. And the people who do this the most are Googlers. Googlers, 47,000 of them, 46,000, have ex-Google on there. Because wherever they are now is not as good as when they used to work for Google. And the worst one I came across is this guy here, who works for Google, but still said he used to work for McKinsey and Goldman Sachs. So working for Google wasn't good enough. When I did this presentation last week in Kuala Lumpur, I got booed for this bit here by mentioning Goldman Sachs. They don't like Goldman Sachs over in Kuala Lumpur.